like we're good.
Okay. According to this stuff, it says we are streaming, so I'm going to get started. Good morning. I'm your host again for the Saturday Morning Mastermind, and we are in the book Whatever Arises, Love That, A Love Revolution That Begins With You by Matt Kahn. This is what the book looks like, and I'm here with some good friends. I'm the only lonely guy on the panel today, so I'll try and keep up with all you guys, and I'll let my friends Samantha, Catherine, and Angel step out and introduce themselves really quick.
Good morning, everybody, and happy early Christmas. Hope everybody's having a good week, and looking forward to the holiday. We probably won't meet next week, by the way, because I think next Saturday is Christmas Day, yeah? Okay, so happy Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays to everybody who doesn't celebrate Christmas, and Merry New Year also. I don't know if we'll join on, we can talk about that later. If we're going to do our thing on New Year's Day or not, but that's it for me. Okay.
I'll go ahead and come out. I think Angel's just listening at this stage. This is Catherine, and I just hope everybody has holidays. I know holidays are hard for some people and holidays are happy for others. So whichever side of that you're on, just know that you're loved, and we're praying for everybody. Let me go ahead and start reading.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. The heart of surrender. It is common for seekers to anticipate spiritual evolution as a static event or one gigantic moment of realization. Am I at the right place?
I think we ended at, well, in the physical book, it was page, no, that, yeah, heart is the center of the universe. That was last week or the week before. Yeah. So we're on the one in the section called creating your own personal love statement.
Got you. Thank you. I thought it sounded too familiar. But sometimes, they'll repeat certain words. Okay, creating your own personal love statement. Here we go. The next step in the heart of surrender is creating your own personal love statement. Although you can find much benefit from embracing your heart one I love you at a time, such an offering is just the beginning. A personal love statement is very powerful, especially if the words I love you come with memories you would prefer to bury. It is very possible that you've heard encouraging words from those who wanted to love you, but wound up lashing out in moments of frustration, anger, and desperation. If that is the case, there may be painful associations in your subconscious mind that obscure your view of love based on the actions of those who hurt you the most. Creating your personal love statement begins by asking yourself the following questions. What are the words I never heard that I always wanted to hear? Who, in my experience, hurt me the most? And what are the words they never said that really would have allowed my healing to occur? Whatever words arise are always valid, since any information you receive could only be the authority of your highest wisdom. Sometimes, with unresolved pain, you do not need someone from your past to say, I love you, if they were never able to do so. Instead, you might need them to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Your personal love statement can evolve day by day, week by week, and sometimes even minute by minute. Whatever you never heard from someone else or wanted to hear more often becomes the words you offer yourself. Just as you may have practiced with I love you, you can respond to any emotional upheaval by repeating your personal love statement in 2-minute intervals as many times a day as you need to. Even when you're not caught in storms of personal turmoil, you can continue offering your personal love statement as a way of uplifting and blessing all beings in existence. As your personal love statement is created or modified, it's important to allow your innocence to fully participate in the process. In order to dissolve each threat and end your fight with life, it is crucial to uncover the words you've always wanted to hear. Maybe they are the words that you have heard, but not often enough. Or maybe these words were never spoken in an authentic tone of voice. What if the words you've always wanted to hear can be inspired from a spiritual or even a religious context? If so, what are the words your source could say that would make you feel as if you can do no wrong? What could be said that allows you to fully be yourself? What would you need to hear to unlock your potential and bring it forward for the liberation of all? As you may already be starting to see, your personal love statement establishes a deeper level of communication with your heart. Even if you were shunned, silenced, or overpowered in the past, your inner child is always willing to be a part of your healing journey. When you offer your personal love statement with patience, softness, and consistency, your heart will soon open up and share with you the secrets that ensure your growth and expansion. As a way of discovering the words you've always wanted to hear or never heard often enough, please repeat the following phrases. You matter. You are enough. You are worthy of being seen and heard. You are special. There is reason you are here. There is a reason you are here. You are beautiful. You are so talented. I always want to know how you feel. Please don't hold back. You are perfect just the way you are. I am so blessed and honored to have you in my life. Thank you for forgiving me. I am so sorry for all that I have done to you. I did not know how deeply you were hurt. I'm sorry I did not consider your feelings. I was wrong. You don't have to forgive me if you don't want to. Your talent knows no limits. Perhaps one or more of these phrases satisfies our heartfelt desire to hear the words that seemed missing from your past. If so, can you become the one who offers your heart the gifts it has waited to receive for far too long? No matter how you wish to be treated by others, can you be the one who supports your emotional needs with greater consistency and enthusiasm than ever before? I'll stop there.
Wow, thank you. I'm going to jump out because for me, even though I hadn't read this yet, but as um you were reading it, Catherine, um, it's weird. I was feeling a lot of what you were reading. I think the way you were reading it really helped put it into perspective for me. That it really impacted me to where, especially in the part where it says creating your personal love statement begins by asking yourself the following: what are the words I never heard that I always wanted to hear? Who in my experience hurt me the most? And what are the words they never said that really would have allowed my healing to occur? And over the years that I've, grown up, and I've said this before on a couple of the, past, um, I know where, a lot of my hurt comes from, and I know a lot of where, you know, the things that deep inside me that have been like walls in relationships, even though I have some great relationships and some good friends that I can confide in and talk to. But in general, I also feel very isolated and alone because of, I think I have a deep, I don't want to say distrust, but I just don't it's hard to fully embrace and give over to, I guess, sharing my life in a sense because of the hurt and the way I'm going to say this, I know the two people that hurt me the most are the ones where I really needed to hear the most, just like it's talking. But with my stepdad, I probably never will because he's passed away. Um, my real mother is still alive, but I don't know if I'm hoping at some point in time I can get to that point where I can, look and, kind of give us both the opportunity to where we can say what needs to be said. I really do hope for that. But I know that, and I'm sure they probably did say, I love you or those things. But I've told a couple people that I don't remember it. I don't, and I never felt it. It's like when my grandmother said I love you, and when she hugged me and stuff, I felt it. There, I felt it, and that's what I've always carried with me was her love. But from the two people I feel that I needed it the most from, I don't ever remember hearing it, feeling it, and I think that's why people look at me and understand, ask me, well, do you love them? I go, yes, I love them, but it's not, it's the same type of love I would have for good friends or, but it's not that. Well, I think you two can understand it, and with, your kids, the love that you really have for it's boundless. There's no end. There's no end to it. It's so deep and so rich and so strong, you know, and so when in creating some of my own, as you were reading the as a way of discovering the words you've always wanted to hear or never heard, and please read, and that whole thing are words in some way, shape, or form I try to say to myself. Maybe not exactly the way it does, but I have more and more been saying. Um, I use a scripture from the Bible. It's called, and I say, I am fearfully, wonderfully made, and in God's image and in love and in truth. And I hold on to that. And whenever I kind of remind myself of that, I feel it. And it kind of, when my moments when I'm really having a rough time or something's really affecting me, I hang on to that and I go to that a lot and tell myself that, along with from the past books where it says I am self-love. I found myself saying that more and more. I am self-love, because a lot of, you hear out there, talking about, you matter, or you need to love yourself first, or you need to, think of yourself first. And I think that's part of what my journey is too, is learning to love myself enough so that way I can love other people even more, even though I feel I have a lot of love and I give a lot of that out, but I just never let anybody really back in for it. So that's what I was getting out of what you were reading just from this, initial reading.
Yeah, I was the part where it talks about creating your own love statement begins with asking yourself these questions. And, the first one being, what are the words I had never heard that I always wanted to hear? I had to really think about that for a minute. And I think that we each could probably meditate on this one little section for a while to see, what different things come up for us when we ask ourselves these different questions. And, for just a tiny thing, the thing that just kind of popped up without a whole lot of prompting was on the idea of trust. And I felt like I wasn't trusted a lot when I was a child. And as I kind of dug into that a little bit more, I remembered a time when I was really little. I mean, I had to have been under 8 years old, under 7 years old. And there was an incident that happened where I was playing with one of the neighbor kids, and I'd been told not to play with him for whatever reason. I didn't understand. I was little, and he had thrown a rock and broken the basement window of his house. And apparently we had both been out there at the same time. He was a couple years older than me. And he had told my parents or told whoever that I was the one that did it. And of course I wasn't, but I guess as a young child, I had lied about a number of different things that I didn't even realize. I mean, I was little, so, who knows what really happened. But I guess that kind of went forward with me in my life, as my parents didn't believe me. And from that kind of point forward, there was always this distrust on their part of what I would say. And it was just kind of a weird kind of thing throughout my childhood and my, teenage years. I mean, I know my parents probably trusted me in some ways, but in a lot of ways they didn't. And it was over silly stuff. I thought it was silly stuff. They didn't trust me to be able to ride on a 4-wheeler, and they just trust me to go riding on mopeds or doing this and that and the other. But I can look at a lot of other ways where they did trust me, but for whatever reason, it just kind of stuck with me. And so I could say that'd probably be one thing and I'm sure if my mom was listening to this, she'd be like, we trust you, we'd let you do this or let you do that, and which is all true. But there was, as kids, we have these things that get stuck in our head, and for whatever reason, they stay with us for long, long periods of time. And I don't know, it was a weird thing that just kind of popped up in my head. And then as you were reading through these statements, Catherine, the ones of a way of discovering the words you wanted to hear, the ones that popped out for me are, I am so sorry for all that I have done to you. I was wrong, and you don't have to forgive me if you don't want to. And, not that I want to be accusing necessarily of my parents, because as parents, we are so freaking clueless. I mean, we are so clueless. I can look back on, me as a young adult when I had young children and see hundreds of things I did wrong. And by wrong, I mean, I didn't know a better way, and I did them how I did them. I did them with a lot of impatience, and mostly it was a lot of impatience and then very short. I have short patience, and I had I had a very low level of tolerance for behaviors, even though my kids were young. And to you, Angel, because I know you're listening, I am sorry. I'm sorry for all of that, and I'm sorry for having a short temper, and I'm sorry that I was short and very firm in times that probably you didn't need it. You probably need me to be more tolerant because you were just a kid. You're just a baby. And, I recognize now, after all this personal development that we've done over the years, how I could have been so much better. And then, of course, I recognize so many ways my parents could have been so much better, but I also have to recognize that they didn't know any better. They were doing the best they could with what they had to work with. And I was doing the same. And I hate it for so many kids out there in the world. And all of us were children at one point. We all had parents that just didn't know any better and just did what they were able to do from how they were raised. And, but that doesn't change the fact that these are things that I would, feel like I would like to hear. And I don't have to hear it from my mom necessarily. I can say it to myself and know that it's from her as a spiritual being, that, in our human form, we are so messed up, I mean, and yet at the same time, I can recognize that we are all spiritual beings and that, we came here for whatever purpose, and this is all part of the experience. And that I know that, all of us as spiritual beings have so much love for each other, and that we would have never have, well, I don't want to say we would have never done this because we did it, but at the same time, we did it from a place of love and spirituality, knowing that what the experience that we would have here. So, and as a human, I want to hear these things, but at the same time, I don't know. It's just really interesting. So I could say these are some of the statements I would want to hear. I was wrong. That's a huge one there, particularly with my mom. And yeah, well, I can see it with my dad too. Mom, if you ever are listening to this, dad too. It's not just you; it's both of you. But I can say it too to my kids. I was wrong. I could say it to my husband. I was wrong. I say it to him a lot. Well, maybe not a lot. Probably less than I should. I should probably say it all the time. I was wrong. But I can say that to a lot of people. And so if I can say that to a lot of people, I can say that to myself as well. And then the other one, you don't have to forgive me if you don't want to. That's a huge one, because sometimes we want to hold on to our anger, and we want to hold on to our frustration with things that happened in the past. And I don't know why we want to do that to ourselves, because we're the ones that are causing ourselves the pain when we do it. But we want to hold on to that, and we want to be mad about it for a while. Maybe we just need to go through that in our own lives. And because I know that we want to be forgiven when we've done things, so if we, it's like my mom, I know that she struggles with that a lot. She wants all of us kids to forgive her for the things that happened in our young life, particularly during the time when she and my dad split up. And I understand her desire for that, because she felt powerless in the situation. And there was so many things that went down that I have forgiven her. But I don't feel like it's even really necessary, because I understand what happened, and I understand some of the things that she went through. And so I can recognize those things and forgive her because of that. And knowing that, it went down the way that it had to go down for all of our personal growth situations. But for my brothers, I don't think they'll ever forgive her. And so, but I don't know, they can't see it from her point of view either. They can't see it from a mother's point of view. Okay, I'm rambling. So anyway, guys, that's a bunch of stuff that came up for me.
I'll jump out here. And I will say I do forgive you. Hang on, bud. I do forgive you, Mom. I get it. And parenting is so hard, especially with little ones. And it's just, even being, with going through this personal development and being, self-aware and everything, I still see myself losing my patience and being short with them and over firm. And it's like, in the moment, it's just, I get so frustrated, they're not listening. I've already said it 10 times, and it's just something, sometimes you just can't control the anger and the frustration that comes out with it. And, and then there's other times where I have to actually step away and remind myself, you're the parent, but it's so hard. They're so hard, and I get it. And I forgive you, because I have so much guilt over it sometimes with my own kids. I'll lay in bed at night like, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have lost my control like that. They're still learning. They're so little, and it eats you up inside. And I try to remember, it's like, it's hard. It's a struggle, and I get it. I completely understand why you were how you were and the ways that happened. And I get it. I see it. I forgive you. And I didn't want to jump out and say that. So, like, I get it. It's so hard. And even being self-aware, and of the things, I can see it happen, but for some reason I just can't really stop myself sometimes, like, no, don't do that, and I'm already doing it, and it's like, oh shit, but I also try to remember too, during those times I try to go back and talk to the kids about it, try to apologize, like, I'm sorry guys, that wasn't cool of me, I try to do that, just, I don't know, in hopes that they understand or that it makes them feel better, or it's just, I don't know, maybe it could just be like a slight selfish thing. Like, I want you to forgive me, like you were saying, like, it's okay if you don't, but I so desperately hope that you don't hold this against me. It's being a mom is hard. Okay, just wanted to jump out and say that before I start rambling.
I'm just going to jump out, and I'm probably going to get it hit on all sides from all three of you guys, but I'm going to say it, and I think some of us, there are some people that might see and understand what I'm saying, and I think it's a valid point to bring up, but I still think in saying this, I'm going to caveat it and say I think there's still room for growth and learning and forgiveness. But I think sometimes, as much as I can be like you, I'm good at being able to put myself in other people's situations. It's sometimes it drives me crazy how much I can put myself in other people's shoes and say, well, here it is. I need to remember that. But if I'm being honest, with, the two people, I forgive them. I understand, especially in my mom's circumstances, a lot of circumstances around some of the things going on in her life at that time that were probably well overwhelming her much more than a child, because my mom had me, was married at 15 and a half and had me at 16. So she was still a kid. And then she had my sister 13 and a half months later, and then one of my brothers a couple years later, and then another one a couple years after that. But the two younger brothers, one was stillborn and one died of crib death. So between being a kid herself, doing what her parents told her to do by getting married, and then having me, and then my sister is 13 out, and probably by 20, she had done a lot of living as a kid still, and still going through all that stuff and living through that. So I can understand and see why I think some of the things got to be more than she could ever handle, and maybe why she might have detached from the world in a lot of ways. There are other aspects about my mom I'm not going to really go into. My real mother. And that's where I was able to find the heart to forgive her and go back and understand it. But if I'm being honest, I can say I love myself. I can say you're forgiven, and that you matter, and that. But there was that one little part in here where, and this is one of the things that really jumped out to me. It says, "You matter. You're enough. You're worthy of being seen and heard, and you're special." I think those four really kind of jumped out at me because I never really felt special, or never really felt seen or heard, or to go with the love. And so sometimes, yes, I can validate myself and validate and do everything I can, but to really genuinely and get it from the person that you need it from the most, I think sometimes there's that little split hair difference in saying it to yourself and being able to use that than getting it from the person that you need it from the most. And sometimes if you can, I get that we're all spiritual beings, we're all connected, and we all have that, and we can feel it. But and maybe that's a little bit part of my journey that I'm, trying to learn and understand and fully grasp. But I think if some people are honest, it's not the same. And it's almost like you're plugging like on the wall, you're plugging a hole that was originally there and full and strong and, part of the foundation, but somehow it got a hole punched in it. So now you're going back and spackling over it, and then you're painting over it, and you're making it look new and making it look all, but down underneath that, what it's really needing, and that core part that is that part of that foundation that is not there. And I think that's the best way I can make that analogy. And so, and I believe that, that when I do die and move on, I will have that full, and be able to fully get it. And I can give myself the best I can here and do the best I can for myself, by telling me those things and holding on to those things and saying those things and holding on to my beliefs. That gives me the wherewithal to keep moving forward. But I think if I'm being honest, there's still that one little part that wishes that even if they were to say, I'm sorry, I didn't know, or, I think then that kind of builds it back to the original state. That's my little bit on that part.
Yeah, Dan, I don't know. I don't know how, if that would make a difference or if it wouldn't. I honestly don't, because I have, I didn't go through what you went through, obviously. And maybe that would make all the difference. I don't know. I do know that as children, we take on so much from our parents and how they treat us and talk to us and act towards us and physically work with us or not, or aggressive or whatever it is. I know we take that on, and it becomes a part of us. And energetically as well as mentally, physically, in every way, it goes forward with us in our lives, and it's part of who we are, and it affects how we are going forward into our lives. And just like, I hadn't even thought about that incident that happened to me when I was a kid about the trust, and the lying, and but I realize now it's affected me in ways I couldn't even fathom till I thought about it, I guess. And I imagine it's definitely the same for you. Is there's probably things that happened when you were a child you don't even remember that have affected you throughout your life. And just saying the words or hearing the words from that person makes the difference. Maybe they make us feel better from now going forward, but they don't change anything that happened. They don't change how we reacted to the world from back then to now. The only thing that any of it really changes is our perspective on it. And, and I think that even just recognizing the most that we can recognize about the things that happened in our past help us in the now and going forward, regardless of whether we hear the words from someone else or whether we even say them to ourselves. Is it just that recognition of, oh, this is probably why that all happened. And that helps us deal with our own traumas from our past, because we all have them, regardless of whether they were, physical traumas or mental traumas or abuse, or we all have traumas in one way or another. And just just that recognition of what happened in the past. It doesn't have to continue to go forward with me in the future. I can let go of it. I can focus on other things. I can tell myself that I love myself. I can tell myself that, all kinds of things. But I think part of it also is if we tell ourselves the things, but we don't truly believe them, then that's an aspect of it too. Because if we don't believe what we tell ourselves, we don't believe the reasons why things happened, is that we can continue to stay in the trauma, and we can continue to torture ourselves and keep reacting in the same ways that we always have, which then goes forward with us in our lives and in our future. And it affects everything. But if we believe what we say to ourselves, and we truly want to feel the things that we're talking about in this create your own love statement, if we want to feel these things, we can allow ourselves to feel them. We can, here's one kind of weird aspect of our human existence, is that we can go back into our memories and we can remember the things that happened, but we can also imagine that things happened in a different way. And we can choose which one of those things that we want to bring forward into the future. And because in this moment right now, this is all we really have, is this moment. And we can go into a state of meditation and feel absolutely nothing in this moment if we want to. Or we can go into a state of meditation and go back into a past event that happened and feel all kinds of pain and anger and frustration. Or we can go back into a past moment where we had pleasure and happiness and feel all of that. Or we could imagine some completely different thing that's never ever even happened to us, and imagine pain or anger or frustration or happiness or love or anything that we want. And we can choose to feel that in this moment. And so it's up to us what we want to feel in any given moment. We can choose anything we want. So what do we want to feel from this moment forward? And what do we want to feel in every moment forward? We get to choose it. It's up to us, and it doesn't even matter what did or didn't happen in the past. And I don't know if that's what he's trying to tell us. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But our weird human mind capabilities of what we're capable of it's really kind of mind-boggling. I mean, we can pretend like the past never even happened if we wanted to, and go forward from here, because it doesn't matter. It's already happened. It's in the past. It's a memory. It's like a movie we watched, or it really happened. I don't know. Maybe it's whatever we want it to be, I guess. I don't know. Morning, Catherine. Welcome. We're just talking about this first or this one part of creating your own personal love statement, and some of the things that came up for us when we were going through that. And then, so that's where we're at.
Morning, Karen. You said Catherine.
Sorry, my brain. Karen.
Okay.
Morning, Karen. I don't know why I do that.
That's okay.
How messed up our brains are. They just work however they want to work, no matter what we do.
I'm sorry. I just threw that. I thought that would be funny, so I, lighten it up a little bit. And I get what you're saying about, that, and our minds are a powerful thing, and that's part, I think, of what I'm learning too, is a little bit of, that, I can go in and I can actively help, and I've, like I said, I've learned that on some of these, the past 2 or 3 books that we've done, about saying things for myself and to myself and believing them. And I do, like when I say I'm, fearfully and wonderfully made, I'm, I believe it and I feel it. And all of a sudden I might be in like really focused on or thinking about something that kind of popped into my head, because a lot of times things just pop in my head and take me down a rabbit hole. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, because it just leads to, and that's what a lot of times when I'll sit there and say, no, I am fearfully, wonderfully made. I'm loved. I am, blessed. I have, and a lot of times. And another statement I use a lot, and I just say, God, wrap your arms around me. I need that right now. And, and in essence, somehow that always seems to help. I always feel it, and it tends to, get my mind off of thinking that, and helps me to move forward. So in that, I know that some of those things are working, and that, I am taking my focus off of, that negative and putting it into a positive. And so I know on that end, you know, I am working towards getting that, there. And I believe with God, infinite intelligence, universe, however people look at it, I'm using those things to help feed into me, basically. So.
Well, as someone who lives with a foot in all the worlds, I just wish that my experience is that it's easier to talk to people and settle differences with people once they have transitioned. In other words, when we're here in the human body, we're trapped in all these circumstances that make us act in ways that, as a loving soul, we wouldn't normally act. And we're not, I believe, we are not judged for those actions, because what God would throw people into such a world and blame them for how they reacted to anything? Not a loving God, and my God is loving. So I choose to believe that those actions are not judged. And I think we should not judge them, because I was pregnant at 16, and so not 15, but 16. And I can tell you, it's a wonder I'm not locked up in a facility somewhere. It's a wonder that I've been able to manage my life as well as I have. Starting out that early and being responsible for other living beings, and then losing two of them. I just send out so much love to your mama, and the fact that she didn't just just take her life early on, or whatever, however she reacted to that. God bless her, because that's a hell of a lot. That's a hell of a lot. And my heart just goes out to her, and I talk to dead people every day, and I resolve differences with them, because I'm actually speaking to the real soul of that person, not the circumstances that they were thrown under the bus and then expected to react from here on earth. So just because someone is gone, please don't feel like you can't have a discussion with them and resolve these things, because you can, and you'll be able to communicate with them so much clearer and easier, and you won't be talking to the bent and broken human. You'll be talking to the glorious, loving soul that, how could you ever question that soul did not love you? She brought you forth into this world. And at that age, in that time, abortion was not really an option. That's why my brother, I've never met my brother. He was given up for adoption, but that's like the next generation there, where it was still a very shameful thing to give a child up for adoption, but it was much, much, much more shameful to have an abortion back in those days. And so, but she could have, you know, you could have just not been here. And I know that hearing the words from yourself doesn't sound the same. I totally get that. I totally get that. But you have to be willing to hear it from them. And even if they're alive and you just have a relationship where you can't discuss these things because they're not going to have the same memory of that situation that you have. Believe me, they're not. Like, there's things that I mean, I have just been in thousands of situations in my life where if you were to pull me and somebody else that was in that situation apart afterwards and say, what just happened? You get two totally different explanations of what just happened. And both people would be telling the truth, and both people would be, you know, completely upfront and honest about how they experience that situation, but we all experience them so differently that and that's why that story about the 4 or 5 men that are around the elephant holding on to a piece, and they're all describing what it is, and it sounds different from everybody's perspective. And that's why so sometimes, whether they're alive or dead, I mean, when they're dead, they're obviously, it's an open conversation at that point. And, you know, bringing up near-death experiences I brought up last week. And again, if you go listen to videos of people who have had near-death experiences, they always, always, always talk about seeing things from such a different perspective. You know, once you're not trapped in all these human conditions and pressures and situations that we get thrown into. And the thing that a lot of people remark about is how, you know, they're taken back and kind of shown all these different life experiences and how you reacted and how you felt, but more importantly, how you made somebody else feel and how remorseful they are over those things. They're just beside themselves with remorse over the way they acted as a human. And yet they're not judged for that other than the judgment that they put on themselves. Like, God understands. And you know, well, I can't say that because I actually have met Jesus in an out-of-body experience, but that was an out-of-body experience. So I have never met Jesus in person, and yet I know that Jesus loves me. I've never met God in person, so to speak. I mean, I meet God every day through myself and other people. But as far as God walking up and shaking his hand, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've never met him in person. And yet, even amongst horrible things that have happened to me in my life, I still feel their presence in my life every day. I have never had to meet them physically, talk to them in person, so to speak. And yet I know how supported and loved I am. So that is what gives me the confidence to know that I can speak to all these other people. And maybe it's all in my head. Hell, I don't know, but I'm telling you, it makes me feel better. So that's all I got for now.
You know, I had I don't know what kind of a moment you would call it recently. I guess it was when I was kind of talking to my dad, since he recently passed away, and I don't know if he necessarily told me or just gave me this impression or whatever it was. It was like a reminder that, you know, sure, I can have a conversation with him now because he's passed over, but I could have conversations with the spiritual aspect of my mom, even though she's still here. And that kind of struck me. I was kind of like, oh, hang on a second. You know, that is a good point. We all talk about this idea that we're here, but we also have this greater spiritual self that is more than what we are in this human experience. And I had never really thought about the fact that I could literally have a conversation with another person's spiritual self, even with them still being here. And when I thought about that, I was like, if I have a situation with a person now or in an event that happened in the past that we can't talk about as humans because there's too much humanness, too much emotion, too much everything, is that we could literally have that conversation on a spiritual realm in a meditation, in a prayer, in a, just like you said, is it in my head? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's literally myself talking to the spiritual self of someone else. And that was kind of like a profound thought right there. I mean, if you are struggling with a person that is still here and you can't resolve it for whatever reason, it is that maybe you can have that conversation with their spiritual self. Because I mean, as humans, I kind of have this like imaginedness of, okay, as spiritual selves, we're this entity, and then this individual here in humanness is kind of like this one just little tiny finger of that spiritual being that is just down here, and we're all kind of like, interacting with each other here, but yet we're all one and all connected, but yet we still have these personalities, even in the spiritual aspect. Just like when we were studying the book, Your Soul's Plan, and in that realm, they kind of put on these personalities, even though they were in the spiritual realm, and they all had so much love for each other, even though they knew, we're going to come down here and be human and be assholes to each other. But yet at the same time, we're also loving to each other too, but I mean, let's be truthful. Most of the time down here in human world, everybody's an asshole. But not everybody. You know what I'm saying? Not in general, but we tend to be, right? And because we're very, in ourselves, and we're the most important, and and this is our experience, but yet we're experiencing it with everybody else. But what if we can just have a conversation with that other person, and as a spiritual being, what would they say to us from that perspective? And is that what we're really trying to do here with these personal love statements, is feel the thing that we want to feel from that other person? Can we just have that conversation with them spiritually, and feel what they would be telling us from that perspective?
Thanks for sharing that, because that's a little bit, that helps me. I'll be honest, that kind of helps me a little bit to know that, because I always have felt that I can talk and converse and carry on with God, and, or to me, God, I just point blank God, but, infinite intelligence, universe, however, and that I can get a lot out of that. But through that, I get what you're saying, that I can talk to them too, through him or through that same thought process. And I have kind of done it a few times. And maybe I'm still learning and understanding that process a little bit. And I'm not going to say I'm suspicious of it. I'm not. I'm just trying to maybe get more comfortable and understand it better, so that way when I do get in that mode or that meditative state, or those moments where I give myself that time to be able to do it genuinely and openly and honestly. And I know the few times I think I've done that, I think I have felt that, and felt that I have come away, walking away, feeling better. So I think it does help, and I'm trying to understand it better and use it better.
Well,
Catherine,
and I think we're
probably-
all put here in, oops, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that there's a book that you've recommended more than once that we read that I really wish we would and wish we would talk about. I can't think of the name of it, but it's, I'd like, if you can think of it, I'd like to write it down. It's where you read about everyone, no matter what they have done in their lives, coming out, being forgiven and understood because of what had happened with them. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or your head won't move.
I can't think of it. Are you talking to me or Karen? Karen, are you talking to me or Catherine, or who are you talking to?
Catherine. It was a book that she suggested 2 or 3 times when we've, put our book suggestions down. Do you know what I'm talking about, Catherine?
It's not coming to mind at the moment.
Okay. Anyway, it has given me a lot of comfort as I think about it, because I just, I relate to different folks, I guess, when I'm watching a television show or a movie, and you've got somebody who's really a bad person who maybe kills a bunch of people or is just, incredibly cruel to other people. And I do think there's always a reason. That's just kind of my, it's just kind of something that makes sense to me, that there's always a reason why people do things that they do. And anyway, in trying to come up with a positive statement for myself, I'm trying to create a new website around the things that we say to ourselves and why we do what we do. Well, that took me down a path that I've lost myself at. I guess I'll just share. I was just coming up the elevator a few minutes ago, and we've got some positive COVID testing in here, and so we had this big emergency thing yesterday, and we all got to wear masks again. And I was saying at breakfast, I've got to, now you see me, now you don't, as I put my mask back on. And I thought to myself, how friendly, I just saw a picture of my dad being really friendly. And I feel like I come from a friendly family, and it's interesting how you can, have days where you think everything's gone wrong and no one's kind and no one's really good. And so coming in at the time that I did, I really appreciated that Dan talked about being fearfully and wonderfully made. There are those things that we can say to ourselves that really do comfort us and encourage us. And I'm going to stop rambling now. Thank you.
You did fine. I wish I could think. Was it Byron Katie's book? I've recommended that one a lot. No? Okay. I don't know. I recommended a lot of books. But, I love you brought it up and Samantha brought it up earlier too. Um, we we get to choose how we look at a situation. And sometimes it's helpful, especially because all of us have, different childhood things that happened. Some are obviously a lot more severe than others, but, we always tend to react for the rest of our lives. We tend to react to whatever happened from that little self, and it's helpful now that we're big people to be able to go back into that situation as a big person and see how we might interpret it differently, um, and I'm not trying to pick on you here, Dan. I'm just going to use you as an example because are I love you for being, putting your shit out there. So, but but looking back, is it less hurtful to what is more hurtful? To look back and say, my mom didn't love me, therefore I'm not lovable, because that's basically what that translates to when you feel like your mom doesn't love you. And I was not raised by my mom, so I know that feeling. Um, is that how does that feel? As opposed to um, my mom was young and emotionally scarred and abused herself, and she did not know how to express love to me. Yet I am lovable. Like there's a difference to me in how those two things feel. And sometimes the best we can do is to choose the better of two feelings. That's why sometimes we get angry and we don't understand why we're angry about something. But if you go back and look and pay attention to what's been going on, perhaps you were at a point of despair before that moment of anger, because anger is actually up on the energy scale from despair. So sometimes we just have to choose a better feeling about something. And even if that just starts the healing process, you know, um, at least it's an open door into there. And I believe that we're here with the perfect set of circumstances for our soul's growth, bottom line. That's what I believe. And so, and again, not to point you out, Dan, but I'm just throwing this out there. So let's just imagine that for your past 10,000 lives, you were never able to love yourself. You love other people, but you just never felt like you were lovable, and you could never really love yourself. Because are you really loving yourself when you also tell yourself you're unlovable? Like that's two completely opposing things, right? So imagine for 10,000 lives you came in and you weren't able to love yourself. And this is another opportunity to not say I'm unlovable because my mom didn't love me, but to really prove to yourself by through belief and through action that you are indeed love. That is what you are. So how could you not be lovable when you are created of love? And I don't mean created as in the the experience that happened in your physical birth, but I'm speaking more of a spiritual side of it right now. And as humans, it's really hard for us to grasp all that, But but I do believe that we are given the perfect set of circumstances to heal or grow or whatever it is, whatever our purpose for coming in. And you can ask questions about that, ask and you will receive. um, Ask and listen. I love you guys. Have a great week. Sorry, I'm going on and on.
I'll finish up because we are like, over the hour. So, but I'll throw one comment on to that. Yeah, I in a way agree with you, Catherine, because as over the years we've been doing our stuff, and as I go back, and when I allow myself to go back and we look and try to gain a better understanding and look at it from a different standpoint, not necessarily my standpoint. Because I said earlier, I can put myself in pretty much anybody's shoes. It's always been the hardest to put myself in my mom's shoes, but I've done that more and more as I've gotten older. And I've realized and come to some things, and that's where I've come to understanding where she was not dealt the best deck, and like you said, times were different, things were different. So, and parents that kind of, and my mom wasn't physically or mentally abused, but I think every kid takes something from their abuse that they just really did not like, really did not, think was fair or right. And so that might have been her one moment, where in that point in time when she was going through what, and I do deep down do believe she does love me. And I will say that unequivocally. I do really, in my heart of hearts, believe that she did love me, however way she did her best to show. I just never grabbed onto it or felt it, or it was never based on other books that we've read. It was never spoken in my love language to where I could grasp it and hold it and receive it. But I am able now to go back and look at it and say, I do believe she did. She did, I'm going to say, I think she's probably worked like what Samantha said, going back and looking back, there's so many things I did and so many things I could have done differently or should have done differently, and so I get comfort out of that and how I can look at it and see it from a different perspective, and maybe a little bit more from her perspective, to where now I can say, I have forgiven her. I have, now it's working more on me, getting me to get to that other side of saying, okay, now that I have forgiven her, I hope at some point in time in the future, I can even at least tell her that, hopefully, maybe, in a letter or face to face, or even now, like, you and Samantha both, said that I can carry on the conversation, and I believe I can, in a sense, through speaking with God and through, that aspect and putting it out there. And I think she'll get that, or maybe understand that, to however it's shown back to her. So yeah, so I'm growing, I'm getting there, and I'm learning, and it's helping, on my journey. So, and you may be right, there may have been, lots of, past where, and maybe this is the one where I'm finally seeing it a little bit more like, no, I am valuable, I am worthy, I am lovable, I am, and am loved. And so in that sense, I'm grateful for that. And so with that, I'm going to wrap this up. This has been the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I don't think we'll be here next week with it being Christmas. So, and we'll discuss and we'll put something up, I'm sure, once we really decide if we're going to be here on New Year's Day or not, and for that. But we're going through the book, Whatever Rises, Love That, by Matt Kahn. And look forward to seeing you when we return, either maybe on New Year's Day or the week after New Year's. So with that, bye for now.